Welcome all back to Scott's Sporting Corner. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the man Liverpool have chosen to lead the club into the next chapter. When Liverpool announced the appointment of Andoni Iraola as a head coach on a 2-year deal, the reaction among supporters was mixed. While many were excited by the football his Bournemouth side had produced, others questioned why Liverpool would appoint a manager on what appeared to be such a short-term contract. But if you've followed Iraola's career, the length of the deal shouldn't come as a surprise. Throughout his managerial career, Iraola has never been obsessed with long-term contracts. In fact, has repeatedly explained that he prefers shorter agreements because he believes managers should earn the right to stay through performances rather than simply being protected by paperwork. As Iraola himself said on, I believe it is the BBC Sport, back around a year ago when he extended at Bournemouth, I don't want to continue at a club just because I have a contract. I want to continue because both sides are happy and they want to continue together. For him, management has always been about results, progression, and trust. If the team's performing, the relationship continues. If it isn't, the length of the contract becomes irrelevant. It's a philosophy that has followed him throughout his coaching career, from Spain to England and now Liverpool Football Club. But who is he? Where did he come from? How did he develop his footballing philosophy? And what convinced Liverpool that he was the right man to lead one of the biggest clubs in world football? This is the story of Andoni Iraola. So when he was a player, before he was a manager, he was born in the Basque region of Spain, where football was part of his identity from a young age. He joined Athletic Club's famous academy. I went on to go and spend majority of his career there. And if anyone knows Athletic Club Bilbao, they only allow players with, I think it's to be born in the Basque region, come through the academy, and maybe something of like a Spanish passport or something like that, where they can only um, kind of, you know, play for them club. And it's quite unfamiliar with a lot of people. They have such a unique footballing clubs in the world because of it. Their recruitment philosophy focus on, like I said, Basque players, meaning every player understands the culture, identity, and traditions of the club. And Iraola embodied everything Athletic Club stood for. And this is, I was listening to Talksport actually last night, and I don't know the guy's name who was kind of leading that conversation, but he was saying because he's come from such a unique city which has such rich history, and you think Liverpool, in a different way, has the same kind of thing where it's unique, it has a rich history, quite strong views on certain things, that because he's used to that, he should buy into Liverpool very easy as well. But like I said, he embodied everything about Athletic Club stood for. As a modern attacking right back, he was energetic, intelligent, technically gifted, and incredibly reliable. And over the years, he established himself as one of Spain's most consistent defenders. He would make more than 500 appearances for Athletic Club, scoring important goals, played in European competitions, and eventually become one of the club's leaders. And I think over his time at Athletic Club as well, he played in Copa del Rey finals, Europa League finals, the Copa de España final. I think they did come on the short end of that, but you've got to remember he's only playing for, with all due respect to Athletic Club, not one of the kind of proper big boys of Spanish football. And also he's got to a Europa League final as well. So for the talks that he hasn't managed at the top level, he's played very much at the highest level in Spain for a very long time, which, like I said, over 500 appearances from the biggest clubs in Spain. Not one of the top clubs, but still a massive club in Spain. And if I remember correctly, that team when they got to Europa League final, that was the Bilbao team, what knocked out Manchester United in that Europa League run. But on top of that, he represented Spain internationally and became known throughout La Liga as a defender who could contribute such an attack as much an attack as he could in defence. I think he played around 7, 8, 9, 10 times for Spain, but also played from the unders all the way to the senior team now. Looking back at this, many of the traits we see him as a manager were visible when he was a player. He was aggressive, he was brave, he was tactically intelligent, and he was always looked to play forward. After spending over a decade at Athletic Club, Iraola made one final move before retirement. In 2015, he joined New York City FC in the MLS. While many players see their final years as a chance to wind down, this period would prove incredibly important for Iraola's future. Working under Patrick Vieira exposed him to new ideas, different approaches to coaching as well. And I believe when he was at Bilbao, I'm sure he worked under Bielsa as well. So he's played under and worked under some, top players, top coaches, which I'm sure he worked under, like I said, Bielsa, which would kind of understand why he plays football in such a certain way as well. But when he started his managerial career, it wasn't actually all plain sailing at the beginning. His first managerial opportunity came in 2018 with AEK Larnaca in Cyprus. I hope I pronounced that right. Like many first jobs, it was a mixture of success and disappointment. There were positive moments. He won the Cypriot Super Cup. He guided the club into the Europa League group stage, but results then became inconsistent. The pressure increased, and eventually the club decided to move on in a different direction, and Iraola was dismissed after only a few months there. I think he went. I think it was around 7, 8 months he was there, but on the back of that, the last 2 months, I don't believe he got picked any victories up there. He later admitted that his first managerial role taught him a great deal about leadership, communication, and adapting to different situations. Instead of it ending his career quite prematurely, it was only the start, and it was just a kind of a setback for him because in 2019 he returned to Spain and accepted a challenge with Mirandés. At a first glance, it looked a modest appointment. Mirandés had recently been promoted to Segunda Division. The objective of this appointment was simple, simply to stay in the division, avoid relegation. What happened next shocked Spanish football. Not only did Mirandés survive comfortably, they embarked on one of the most memorable cup runs in recent Spanish history. In the Copa del Rey, they began eliminating bigger and wealthier oppositions. First came Celta Vigo, then Sevilla, and then Villarreal. One after the other, established and Liga sides were being knocked out. Suddenly, football fans across Spain were asking the same question: who is this manager? How is he doing this? The answer lays in the football. Mirandés were organised, they were fearless, they pressed aggressively, they attacked with confidence. Most importantly, they refused to be intimidated by bigger clubs. The cup run eventually ended in semi-finals, but at that point the football world had noticed what Iraola was and what Iraola's style of play was. And looking back now at this is where I can see that how he will be successful at Liverpool if he can get to latter stage of competitions, have that exposure, have that experience playing against top oppositions. People say he hasn't had the experience of winning major trophies, but I tell you what, he's took underdog teams to the latter stages of them. And this isn't the first time, well, the only time, should I say, that this has happened, because then he went in 2022, he accepted the position as Rayo Vallecano. This would become one of the most defining periods of his career. At that time at Rayo, was in Spain's second division. The club had passionate supporters, a strong identity, and a reputation for entertaining football, but they desperately wanted to return to La Liga. Iraola delivered almost immediately. In the first season, the clubs finished sixth and qualified for the playoff positions. In that playoff positions, they come up against Leganes and Girona, which they defeated both of them to secure promotion back to the Spanish top divisions. For many managers, promotion would have been enough, and then you would be focused mainly on trying to survive the following season. Not for Iraola. In his first season back in the Liga, Rayo finished 12th. The following season, they finished 11th. The league position might sound not spectacular at first glance, but context matters. Rayo were operating one of the smallest budgets in Spain's top flight, yet they were consistently competing with clubs possessing far greater resources. Once in La Liga, Rayo quickly became one of the most exciting teams in Spain. Most promoted teams look to just simply survive. Rayo arrived looking to compete. They were pressing relentless. Their intensity was exhausting. Opponents struggled to play through them. Even Spain's elite clubs found it difficult to face them. Under Iraola, Rayo regularly challenged teams with far greater financial resources. There was no fear, there was no inferiority complex, no parking the bus. Whether they were playing Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, the philosophy remained the same. Press aggressively, attack quickly, and play with courage. Football analytics began paying close attention. The statistics backed up the eye test. Rayo became one of Europe's most effective pressing teams. They constantly forced turnovers high up the pitch and created opportunities throughout their intensity. And an example of this was in the 22-23 season. They were among Europe's major leagues for the kind of turnover in possession. Only Bayern Munich forced more turnovers leading to shots than Iraola's Rayo Vallecano. Just simply think about that. It wasn't Man City, not Klopp's Liverpool, not Arsenal, only Bayern Munich managed to beat them in this statistic. Obviously, statistics, you can paint them however you want, and you can't just focus on one. But this is a very key area where you can see Liverpool using under Iraola. And for a club of Real's resources, this is quite simply extraordinary. The football world was beginning to see Iraola as one of the brightest young coaches in Europe. After an impressive 3 years with Rayo Vallecano, the Premier League did come calling for Andoni Iraola. The summer of 2023, Bournemouth made a bold decision. Despite surviving under Gary O'Neill, the club's ownership wanted a different direction. They wanted a coach with clear identity, a coach capable of transforming the club's style of play. They chose Andoni Iraola. The start could hardly have gone worse for Andoni Iraola and Bournemouth. Bournemouth failed to win any of their kind of opening 9 games in the Premier League. The criticism around that soon got higher, it got intensified. Pundits questioned the appointment, and a lot of supporters started to grow frustrated. To be honest with you, I remember this when they got appointed. I thought it was a really bad decision. I had never heard of him. I remember listening to the kind of radio talks, and everyone was saying this is probably too much of a risk for Bournemouth to take at the time. Many wondered whether his aggressive approach simply wasn't suited to English football, but the Bournemouth hierarchy remained patient, and eventually the breakthrough arrived. The players became more comfortable in the system, the pressing became sharper, the movement improved, the confidence returned. Slowly but surely, Bournemouth became one of the most entertaining teams in the league. By the end of the first season, the club had achieved a record points tally. More importantly, they had developed a recognisable identity. You knew exactly what an Iraola team looked like. The following season saw Bournemouth continue to evolve. The club moved from survival mode into genuine competition with some of England's strongest sides. They pressed with intensity. They attacked vertically as well. They caused problems for clubs with much bigger budgets. They were giving them difficult moments. The thing is, when I remember listening to a quote last night, actually, and I think it was Rory Jennings on Talksport, and they were talking about Iraola, and they were saying in a recent interview, he kind of spoke about his ideology. Obviously, wanted to play forward, wanted to play vertically, but also he said whenever somebody gets hold of the ball, it doesn't matter what position it is, the first thing we should be to do is to score a goal. And I think this is kind of where everyone sees the links between Iraola and the Jurgen Klopp team. But like I said, there were difficult moments. There was a lengthy winless run in the 25-26 campaign that tested both players and the manager. And this was after they'd lost Kirkes to Liverpool. They'd lost Huijsen to Bournemouth, to Real Madrid. They lost, I can't ever say his name, Zabania to PSG. Then come January, Semenyo went off to Manchester City. On top of that, he'd lost other key players in previous seasons. Dominic Solanke on Tottenham. Players such as Philip Billing had moved on as well. But one of Iraola's greatest strengths is refusal to abandon his principles during difficult times. He stayed committed. Eventually, Bournemouth recovered, the results improved, the performances improved, and the club achieved something previously unimaginable: European qualification for the first time in Bournemouth's history. For a club of Bournemouth size, it was historic. And realistically, they only just missed out on Champions League football. They finished sixth last season. I think they were on 57 points. We finished fifth on 60 points. I think if they caught us, it'd have been difficult for us to pull away from them again. I also think if there was a situation where they had a playoff, I think if they had to win 5-0, last game we had to lose 1-0, I think we'd have struggled against that Bournemouth team. But there's a common thread with Andoni Iraola. What makes Iraola's journey so impressive is the pattern that appears at every club. He inherits a struggling team, he improves them, he develops clear identities, he overachieves relative to resources. At Mirandés, he exceeded expectations. At Rayo Vallecano, he exceeded expectations. At Bournemouth, he exceeded expectations. Every step of the journey tells the same story: a manager capable of making teams better, a manager capable of competing against richer opponents, a manager capable of building culture and systems that players believe in. And this is why Liverpool ultimately turned to Andoni Iraola when the time came to appoint a new manager. His journey wasn't built on reputation alone, it was built on evidence. At every club he managed, he improved performances, developed players, implemented a clear identity, and achieved results beyond expectation. By the time Liverpool came calling, Iraola had proven he could become but it could build successful teams under pressure and compete against clubs with far greater resources. From athletic club legend to a failed rookie coach in Cyprus to a giant killer in Mirandés to promotion winner with Rayo Vallecano and ultimately European qualification with Bournemouth and now the Liverpool manager. Every challenge, every setback and every success helped shape that one of the most respectable coaches in modern football. So why is this important? Why should we take this into consideration for Liverpool? The case for Liverpool. Perhaps the biggest reason Liverpool chose Andoni Iraola can be found in simply patterns that had followed him throughout his managerial career. Simply improvement. We can lace it or whatever it is. If you look at the metrics, it is just simple improvement. At every club he's managed, the trajectory has been upwards. At Rayo Vallecano, he inherited a side in the Segunda division and immediately guided them from promotion after finishing sixth and winning the playoffs. Rather than simply surviving in La Liga, Rayo continued to grow under his leadership, finishing 12th in their first season back in the top flight and improving again to go 11th in the following year. Then came Bournemouth. His first season in England ended in a respectable 12th place position and implemented his demanding style in the Premier League. The following season they climbed to 9th. Then in the 25-26 they reached another level entirely. The Cherries finished sixth in the Premier League, securing European football for the first time in the history and qualifying for Europa League following a remarkable 18-game unbeaten run. What stands out isn't the final league positions, it was a consistency of progression. Rayo Vallecano, 6th, Segunda Division, promotion, then 12th, then 11th. At Bournemouth, 12th, then 9th, then 6th. Each season brought improvement. Each season brought growth. Each season his team became more competitive, more confident and more recognisable in their style of play. The ability to build something year after year in what separates good coaches and elite ones. And it's likely one of the biggest reasons Liverpool hierarchy believed Andoni Iraola was the right man was to lead the club into the next chapter. His career has never been built on one great season. It has been built on sustained progression, clear ideas, and proven ability to leave every club in a better place than he found it. Very interestingly, another certain manager said that when he left Liverpool, Mr. Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool haven't appointed a manager because of one good season. They've appointed a manager. They've appointed a coach whose entire career has built on progression. From Mirandés to Bournemouth, the trend has always been the same: improve the players, improve the team, improve the results. The challenge now is whether Andoni Iraola can take that formula and apply it to one of the biggest clubs in the world, one of the biggest footballing stages. If it's his career so far, going anything else, Liverpool supporters have every reason to be excited on what the next step is. And I, for one, I'm super excited. And I've spent the last couple of days writing this up, wanting to share this with you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I am super excited, like I said, for the appointment of Andoni Iraola. It is going to be on a 2-year deal, which, like I said, it did surprise a lot of fans at first. But this is just how he works, and I think we're going to be on one roller coaster of a ride. So please do stay tuned and have a fantastic week, and I'll speak to you all again next week.